Hello, good evening, everybody. We're just waiting to get started here. One more minute and we'll get started. I see we got a few people in the room. And welcome to Beaver Politics, Indigenous Matters. Let's see if I can get. Just gonna send the video, the live out for those that are in the room. If you want to start sharing, sharing is caring, and tapping is clapping. Tonight we're going to talk about just a little bit of a check-in and see how everybody's doing mental health wise with regards to what's happening in the world and where things are at on Turtle Island and with our Indigenous people, and as we're moving into a federal election and threats of tariffs and colonial action that just keeps happening. So I just wanted to have a little bit of a check-in today and bring some folks up. So anyone that's in the room and wants to come up and chat with me tonight about how we're all kind of coping with our mental health and stuff, we'll do that. But I see it is 6 o'clock, so let's get the show started. Welcome to the Beaver Politics Network. I'm Trudy Sixbirder, the host for Indigenous Matters. We host this every Monday evening at 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. Our rules of engagement here are the 7 sacred teachings: honesty, respect, wisdom, love, humility, courage, and truth. We use those as a guide in our conversations and when we're talking with one another and sharing space and your experiences and hearing from each other. So yeah, if you want to come up, I'm going to open up and get some folks up here. We got Curtis coming up. Anyone else is welcome to join. Today was just, let's have an open discussion and check in with each other. And I've been traveling a lot, so I haven't had a chance to make a big plan for today. Plus, I've been battling some illness, probably due to all the travel I've been doing. I feel like every time I get on a plane, I get home and I'm sick within a couple of days. And so I've been battling that off and on. Plus, with all of the dread that's going on in the world. So you're all welcome to come up. Hi, Curtis. How are you doing, my friend?
Concept, bonjour. Hello, my friend. Life is good. Mentally,
Someday.
I'm okay. I'm the kind of person that can kind of endure a storm and come through it, Kind of like, I like that, like I went through a lot and nothing could really bring me down because when you're strong mentally, spiritually, and you can get through anything, like any kind of trauma or anything that comes your way. You just endure it and you get through it, and time, it takes time. And like mentally, there's things we're always bombarded every way in life, so many challenges, so many things in life, and like can't let anything bring us down, make it stronger. So that's why I always look for the brighter days, brighter futures, whatever. I look for those things and hope. We always have to have hope, but no matter what's coming at us, like we think, oh, they're doing this to us today, oh, they're doing that to us today. Well, they've been doing it from day one and we're still here.
That's true. You
Yes.
know,
Absolutely.
that is such a good point. Like our ancestors endured so much
Yeah.
and we're still here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree with you.
A
Like
little
I
little
pretty
tariff or
much,
a little Trump ain't gonna bring us down. We survived smallpox.
that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. For the most part, I think I'm pretty good at coping with things too. It's just every once in a while it gets to be a little much, and I feel like maybe it's too because we have social media now.
Oh yeah, we
So
know
like,
everything that's going
yeah,
on.
the minute it happens, it's like, oh my god, what happened next? I find myself constantly like, even in first thing in the morning, I get my phone, got to look at the headlines. Maybe something happened overnight. like how crazy is that? Anyways, how you doing, Smarshy, my friend?
Tomsy, everybody. Yeah, I'm okay. Getting by.
Good, good.
Um, yeah, I was having a conversation with some people today, and we were talking about everything like colonization, and just everybody's like, "Well, this and this happened." I said, "Yeah, but I feel the anger of my ancestors, and I'm transitioning that anger into something better. But I'm only moving in the shadows. No one's going to know what I'm doing until it's actually happening. Because I'm tired of people telling me, oh, you can't do that. Watch me. I can do what I need to do for my family and my my community. So it's gonna happen.
That's good. Yeah. And I've noticed too, like, we've definitely built a community here in this space. And it's I quite for me, I really enjoy it because having moved to the country, like when we lived in Calgary, we had neighbors, and you make friends, and you see the same people in the same restaurants and stuff. And we had a local lounge that we would go to, and we had friends there, right? And here, living in rural Alberta, um, unfortunately, the people haven't been so accepting of us, but that's okay. But it's we don't really have one place to go to hang out with friends anymore. So it's kind of we found ourselves here in this space, and it's been great actually. Like I love that we have found people of like-mindedness, people with kindness and caring in their hearts, and that's a good thing. But and anyway, I'll pass it on. So Sasquatch, nice to see you. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Well, I'm having a little bit of a rough day. I've been dog sitting for a neighbor, and unfortunately, he hasn't taken the best care of this dog. He's never had a bath, and he took the dog running on a bush road that's a very active logging road, and the
Oh,
dog got hit. So it's called osteomyelitis, and basically, if the bone breaks the skin, it's like if we got a staph infection. So the poor little guy's gonna lose his leg now. So, and then my dad fell and hurt his knee, so he just ran to Prince George to get knee surgery. I'm like, it's been a rough 6-8 months. It's been a lot of dog stuff, a lot of people getting hurt in the hospital. So I am trying to manage that with, like we say, everything going on. And Curtis is right. You can't just let it get down and be woe is me. But it's a balance between having empathy and trying to feel your feelings, but not let it drown you. And I'm just trying to look forward to school in September, and I'm going to take my heavy duty mechanic, and I'm going to get out of this little butthole of a town that's a little too conservative and stuffy and backwoods and bigoted for me. And I think moving back to Prince George is a start. I don't think it's ideal, but I think being back around my circles will be a little bit better. And then I'm thinking of maybe moving to like Edmonton with my sister, because she's a great support, and I want to support her. She doesn't drive, so I'd like to kind of support her, but also I think that there will be a lot more open-mindedness and culture. I know Alberta, you don't necessarily think the most progressive, but there's some like really, really, really good people I know in Alberta, and I'm kind of looking forward to taking the kind of daily onslaught of people that don't hear what I say. And like there's like I have safe spaces online. I'm so grateful for Beaver Politics, but I'd like to have that in a physical space as well, and have places to go. And I've got some really cool Indigenous artists that I know around Edmonton, and I can go and physically support them and like buy stuff. And I can go, instead of him having to mail it, I can go and pick it up, and I can go and check out the shop and just kind of have that physical safe space is what I'm looking forward to. And then working my butt off and being busy and distracted for a while.
yeah, I hear that. And that's like totally, I've been busy with work, like I said, with all my travel and stuff I've been doing. And so it's kind of a nice distraction for sure. And even like both Perry and I, our parents, like mine are more elderly than his. His mom's actually still works. She works in the
Wow.
camps. She's 75 years old, and she works up in the camps in oil sands, 12-hour shifts.
Wow,
Oh,
I
that's
know it's
amazing.
lady,
impressive, hey?
dang. Put me to shame.
I know. I don't think I could do it anymore. But
Wow.
but it's amazing. But my parents are both. My mom's going to be 80 next month, and it's nice to still have my family, my parents with me, and it's a good distraction too, right? To be able to go and spend time with them, and family's so important. And it just feels like we sometimes don't get enough opportunity to make the time. Like we live an hour from our kids, 45 minutes from our parents, and then with work and stuff, it's always the kind of feels like life just whizzes by. But anyways, how are you, Whitney? Nice to have you up. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Danet ara Size Whitney Ata Sinajana Sutana Ua Treaty 7 Ua Dene. Hey everybody.
Welcome.
So beautiful.
This is my new account for those who know me. My other one got banned a few weeks ago. They don't,
Oh,
I
they don't
remember.
like me speaking on Palestine and Indigenous issues, but whatever, I'm going to keep doing it. I don't care about numbers.
I'll
Yeah,
support you.
I
Yeah, I just
agree.
wanted to jump in and say hi. It's been one of those days like, um, I think I'm struggling today because for my whole life, no matter which spaces I've walked into with my education and experience of living the life, every professional space I've ever walked into, I've always had to prove that I belong to be there, that I'm qualified enough to be there, and putting up with the microaggressions or the stereotypes when you walk into a room, and whether it be sitting with government officials or RCMP members or people in the courts, education, automatically knowing when you walk in that room, when they see you, they automatically think you're the least educated to speak on any of the issues. And I'm just having that experience today by one of the female leaders in my own community making comments on some of the stuff I'm posting on Facebook to try and make people in my own community aware of what's going on globally and internationally at a level that goes far beyond just um, our own little nation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd jump up and encourage our people who are struggling. I know that we're told in our communities for different reasons that voting isn't important, or we're somehow losing out, or they're going to take something away from us if we use our right to vote, or they're trying to turn us into municipalities if we start voting in their elections. And I'm here to remind people that every once in a while there's moments in history where we can't just leave it up to the people in power to fight for our rights, that we have to do it ourselves, and our ancestors have done it for us, and now it's our turn. It's okay to work together with other communities and other people that we don't always get along with or that we fight with on a provincial or federal level, to save the overall common goal of what we're all fighting for at the end of the day, which is our sovereignty, even within our own nations, our treaty rights, our water, to protect our water, our land, our resources. And these conservative governments, I don't like using the word conservative because a lot of people get offended instantly. I like to call them the maple megas who have taken over the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
you know, they're coming for
Wait,
all of us. They're coming for our Two-Spirit LGBTQIA community members. They're coming for women's rights. They're coming for Indigenous rights. They're coming for open resource extraction that will affect everybody now and going in the future. So I just wanted to come up and say, even when it's our own people discouraging us, just remember it's not just up to them to sit behind desks and protect our rights when we're being threatened at this level.
You know,
oh, miigwech,
Yes,
thank
gas.
you.
miigwech.
Hey, hey. You know, I can't, like, I agree with you so wholeheartedly on that. And I know, I feel in my heart anyways, that if we don't have Canadian sovereignty, which is what is happening, where it's being challenged now, we don't have our sovereignty either. Right. And I know that a lot of that attitude about not voting kind of comes from that, we're sovereign nations as First Nations. And I understand that and I respect that, but I'm with you on this one, Whitney. This is a very critical time in our history globally, that we and our voices matter and our rights matter, and this is our beautiful land. These are our resources. And our ancestors endured so much so that we could still be here today. And I believe it's a time for us to honor them and participate in all of this in the best way that we can. And if that means voting now, and that's all someone can do, then do that. But if you can be at protests, or if you can participate in campaigns, or whatever it is, it's an important time for us as Indigenous people to express our voices, stand up for our rights, stand up for our land, and stand up for all our relations. So Thank you so much for that. And I
Thank you,
wanted to
Whitney.
share. Sorry, Smarshy. I just wanted to share one more thing with Whitney about. I hear you when you talk about those tables, when you come to them and you feel like you're not being fully that same level of respect as everybody else. And I remember feeling that way too, especially in the first probably decade of my career. And it makes you feel like in confidence sometimes too, like a little nervous to, should I say this or shouldn't I? And I realized like after a while when I got out of that shell, and what really happened for me at one critical turning point in my career is working for industry actually. And my position was a senior Aboriginal relations advisor for a major corporation. And it was really amazing to sit around those project tables with engineers and all other types of professions. There'd be about 20 other team members around a project table as we were planning a project. And I was looked upon as the subject matter expert in my field and respected as such. Nobody challenged my direction or my advice or guidance that I brought to the table. They accepted what I said and would be, they might ask me questions to get clarity on things, but nobody ever was like, oh no, that doesn't sound right. They actually took my advice. And at first I was like, wow, is this really happening? And it was such a great experience and such a great builder of confidence to be actually and be called that straight to my face. Hey, you're the subject matter expert, so we want to hear from you on this. I was like, wow, a subject matter expert. So that was really beneficial for me to hear that at that point and not feel tokenized any longer, because there were a lot of jobs I had. And, especially with the government of Alberta, they were really bad for tokenizing the Indigenous staff on our teams. Like there was one leader that not a non-Indigenous older man too, like he was ready for retirement. And there was me and about 3 or 4 other people on the Aboriginal relations team for Alberta Environment. And this was about 2007 or 8. And this man came into the meeting room and he just looked at us all. And there were non-Indigenous staff there too. He's like, what are we going to do about the Indian problem? And me and the other Indigenous staff were just like looking at each other like, did this really just happen? And we'd come to those tables with ideas and try to share our experience and stuff. We were so often brushed off. So I know how that feels, Whitney. And it's challenging, but I know I can tell just knowing you on this app that you're a really strong, powerful woman and your voice matters. So I'm sure you have a powerful voice at those tables, my friend. Smarshy, sorry I cut you off.
You're good, honey. I just wanted to say thank you, Whitney, for giving me that enlightenment because it also lets me know that what I'm feeling is not invalid. I just have to use that feeling of the enragement of our ancestors to do something good. Curtis, I always love hearing you talk because you're so insightful. And it's meant with the greatest intention when you say something, even if we disagree, it's still with the greatest intention. So thank you, Pretty Bird. I had someone say something similar to that on my panel. I'm not going to get too much into it because it doesn't matter. It's not here. But I look at these people and I'm like, do you hear yourself when you talk this way? Like, are we are we needing to go back to grammar school, or we need to go back to manners class, or do we need to take like a sensitivity training class? Because that's almost what it seems like to me. Like we need sensitivity training in these um,
You know,
departments.
It's kind of interesting because I see you doing that actually in the live. Like, sometimes I'll pop by a live and I'll see that you're in there. So I'll stop to hear what the conversation is. But oftentimes in the day, I'm just having a quick break and I stop and listen. And I see you doing that, Smarshy. You are definitely an ambassador of our people. And you do a lot of cultural awareness and cultural sensitivity training for free.
Yes, I should be getting paid for this shit. Sorry.
Right. And like I think some of that even helps us with our mental health. Oh, for some reason it's saying my live's going to end in 5 minutes. Why would that be? We've detected inactivity during your current live.
Puzzle piece. You just have to put the
Oh,
puzzle piece
okay,
together.
there it is. Yeah, I see it. Oh, I didn't do it right. It's one piece and I couldn't even get it. one little piece of puzzle and I couldn't even get it right. It's a bad day when. Oh,
It's
anyways.
okay.
Yeah, and you know what? Hey, like look at this and just us sometimes, the way as Indigenous people how we laugh so much. And even sometimes yeah, I've been to wakes and funerals and everyone's hanging around and they're laughing and having a time where I don't know that we would say it's a good time, right? But it's a time of sharing and having that laughter as healing. And I noticed, like, I know we laugh a lot when things get tough too, especially Cree people. We're always find the humor in things, and it reminds me of a friend of mine and I were traveling across through. We were on every First Nation in the province here in Alberta, and we were trying to learn Cree. So we were driving with a Cree dictionary with us, and we heard a couple coming out of a band office, and they were laughing away, and the lady had said to her husband, "Oh, etagwe," and we were like, "Wonder what that means." So we go in the book, and it means maybe or perhaps. We're like, I wonder what was so funny about that. But whatever it was that they were talking about was quite hilarious, but it wasn't perhaps. But we thought maybe it would give us a clue.
Can,
But I think that is such a healing thing for us as Indigenous people. That laughter
can,
and
can I address a comment in the comment section here?
sure, who's commenting?
Some of you look European. Why is that? Because colonization was a thing, my dude. That's why we look European.
Oh.
It doesn't matter how much cream you put in the coffee. At the end of the day, it's still freaking coffee. Get over yourself.
That's a really good analogy, Smarsh. Thank you for that. And for that person who said that, there's so many different stories and versions of indigeneity on Turtle Island now. Um, because of the way legislation was written, because of the policies that were put in place from the mid 1800s onwards. And especially with John A. MacDonald and some of the things that he did. And then we had in the 60s, the 60s scoop. We had the residential schools all the way up until the 90s. We had people that were adopted. We had people like myself my Indigenous parent, I think instead of grasping and hanging on to his indigeneity, he felt the defeat and he decided to let it go, or it was easier to just kind of get through life without hanging on to it. So we've all had different versions of our lived experience, but it doesn't make us less Indigenous than the other. So go ahead, Curtis. Sorry.
To make three quick points. First one is I loved your video about you going into nature all the time and listening to the birds, and that's where I get my strength from. And when I need to recharge, I go into nature, and like it's a spiritual thing for us. It's just you feel one with everything, and it's a good way to reconnect. And I just love doing that. Like anytime like life gets busy, I go back to the forest and I just go stay there and just meditate and think and listen. And then it's true. In my territories, there's resource extraction going on all over the place. We have gas pipelines, everything happening in our territories. And it wasn't that way. Like there's roads everywhere now, cut lines, and you're just getting less and less of our areas that are, untouched, like the way they were a long time. And we have our sacred sites that we always want to maintain, and they come for our sites too. Like they'll say, oh, there's a huge resource deposit here. And then they come to the First Nation and they want to consult. And these are the issues that we're facing with that. That's one thing I want to mention. And every nation's at different stages with that, with that. And another thing I want to mention was, you know, uh, there's some First Nations people going to be running in the upcoming elections. I've been following a few people on Facebook. One of them is former chief of Enoch Cree Nation, Billy Morin. He's running for the Conservatives in Edmonton Northwest. So I really like Billy and all the things he did for Enoch. And yeah, I think if he gets elected, he'll be great. I know a lot of our First Nations people are very weary of the Conservatives because of the past of Harper and stuff. But there's people like him that are running. I just want to bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, I just want to mute this guy because he's like me. They're not full Indigenous, so I take benefits from legit Indigenous people. Again, my dude, dehumanizing me by saying I'm only half. I already know I'm only half. That's what Métis are. They're French Canadian and Indigenous. That's what it is. If you can't get over it and you're just gonna say hurtful things, I wish you the best, my dude. I wish you find the peace and the solace and happiness that you deserve because you're not getting very far right here. I'm not attacking you at all. I'm just saying what you're doing is harmful and it's a colonialism thing.
Yeah.
Just be nice.
Thanks, Marshy. And you know what? Like sometimes those folks don't really deserve our time and energy. And we don't need to explain to anyone about our indigeneity when we know who we are and where we come from. They're
I, I've
missing.
just I've
We're
just
lovely
learned
people. I know.
I
And
just
go ahead.
it's so frustrating.
It
Again,
is.
I am half. I know that. I
I
know I'm
have
half.
too. I was always
I am
identified
not denying
Métis
it.
until I recently got my status. So I applied for status the first time in 2001 and I just got my status in 2021. So it took 20 years, but it was also a change in legislation. Like that S3 decision was what helped led for me to get my status. And my father, so I'll just share for maybe if this person is interested. So my dad was always raised Métis because his grandfather was a Métis man, his grandmother was First Nation. So I decided to get my status for her
Right,
because somebody decided she couldn't be the First Nation woman that she was because of course it was by design to get rid of First Nations, right?
right,
They were hoping to breed us out. And
right.
I wanted to honor my great grandmother and have my status for her. And
Hmm.
my dad claims Métis, but my dad didn't raise me with Métis culture. Despite his brother was, his brother was Harry Daniels, who negotiated the inclusion of Métis in Section 35 in the Constitution Act of Canada. So I have a very strong Métis ancestry, but I also have that First Nation great grandmother who I think
Right.
is just as important to my story as everyone else's. So
And I mean, normally I would get mad at these people
yeah,
for what they're doing, but I mean, honestly, it's all about education, and I'm learning to not get mad
that's
because
good.
I wish them the best. And I don't hold anything against them. And what you're saying is not wrong. But
Yeah,
when you keep reminding me I'm only half Indigenous, you really take away my humanity by doing that. And that's not
absolutely.
fair. And I may look white, but I'm Indigenous first.
Yeah. And that's not for anyone else to decide or judge but you and creator. So let them be. They can, it's probably because that person doesn't even know who they are deep down inside. But I want to go back to what Curtis was saying too about the nature, being in nature, and that is a really important part for me also, Curtis, when I'm um needing a break and I need to kind of time for myself. And oftentimes, like I think you've probably seen, I do a lot of work in the bush too. I'm always walking and thinking, and I stop and record something, or I'll even take just voice notes because I'll have an idea and I don't want to lose. But I do also spend time when there's a beaver dam about a half a mile from my house, and it's on actually the First Nation. One of the First Nations in Musqueam owns that land. It's their land that they own. It's not part of the reserve. But I go up there and I'll hang out up there and I'll watch the ducks and the geese are coming soon because that dam's gonna start. The ice is gonna start breaking up, and so I'll go there and just listen and watch the clouds and look at the trees and feel their energy. And it is a beautiful thing for me too. And I wanted to talk to you about, I'm really grateful that there are our people are getting involved in politics. And I did hear that, I read that post that you shared with me from Billy Morin about running in the Conservative Party or for the Conservatives. And we actually, Perry and I went to a roundtable discussion with our MP, who's Mike Lake, and he's a Conservative MP as well. But I didn't vote for him, but he still represents me in Parliament. So, and Perry, right? Because we live in the riding where he is our MP, and he told us at that meeting that Billy Morin was going to run. Um, I don't think I personally is not in line with the same values as Mr. Morin. My values are a little bit different, but that's fine. We don't all have to agree all the time. And I would be really grateful to see a First Nation MP in Alberta, conservative, liberal, NDP, I don't care. That is an Indigenous voice in Parliament, and that's an important thing. And I would have faith, even if it's if knowing he runs for conservative. I know people in Enoch too, and I know that Enoch shared. There's people from his territories that share the same values and that care about land and want to have a healthy future for First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all Canadians. So I'm grateful. It's really a good thing when we start seeing our people running in federal, provincial, and it would be nice to see even municipal. I kind of thought about it one time running for the county council, but again, I live in a pretty rough part of rural Alberta. Anyway, Sasquatch, did you want to add anything more to the conversation? How do you? I think I get the sense from you that you too also like to be in the bush or out on the land.
Well, I was raised by loggers, and we got to go out to like Takla Lake, and it wasn't just the fact that, like, yes, we're out in the bush and it's a lot of white guys, and okay, we're out on a cut block cutting down trees, but a lot, which sometimes, trust me, it broke my heart when I'm in the skidder and I look back at someone had just, bunched in cut trees, and you see a bird come back and land on a stump, like, where is my home? It broke my heart, don't get me wrong. Or you see, 5-gallon drums and skidder tires getting thrown into a fire. That stuff really bothered me and pissed me off. But at the same time, we'd get to go to places like Takla Landing, and you get to see the way Native people do it in the bush. And even in a resource harvesting setting, they're logging, whatever the case may be. And you can see the difference in how not only do they treat the environment, but how they treat the other people coming in there. Because I can tell you, the way I saw some of the white men talk about Native people made me at like 10, 11 years old get sent back to the trailer because I'd be trying to scream at them and swing fists at them. Don't get me wrong. But, seeing grown men not stand up to that, like, you're only here because they let you be here. But okay, your family eats and lives because they let you come here on their land and log. But okay, keep going off. But the way Native people would let white people come in, and all they asked was, we want to say on what happens here, we want it to be environmentally respectful, and we want you to be respectful to the people here. And that's all they asked. And 9 times out of 10, the white people couldn't even be respectful to people. Like, just the way it could have taught me 2 ways. I could have gone with, what I saw, and I could have gone, oh, well, I can make fun of these people and I won't get in trouble. And then it just radicalized me. I'm like, imagine coming into someone's house and going in their fridge and eating their food and throwing food and garbage all over the house and somehow talking down to them. And it just absolutely radicalized me. I'm like, these people are it's like a little princess sitting on a throne, and they think they can bark around and tell everybody what to do. It's like, you're only a princess because of all these townspeople, sweetheart. Like, like, people can take your throne away very quickly. And watching especially where I'm up in Mackenzie now, that it's actually a lot of, if it's not the band itself, it's just Indigenous people that are starting their own logging shows. We've got Duzcho and Chucho, to which my understanding means big wood and little wood. And they do things very differently, and people here get in an uproar because, they're hiring only Indigenous people. And I go, one, both my dad and brother were white and worked at Chucho, so no, they absolutely do not. And also the fact that that's who lives there. So if I live in a white town and they're going to build a big pipeline through here, and I hired guys from whatever, the US, well, we should give the job to the locals. You're literally out on Native land. That's the locals. So if you're going to come and pillage their resources, use their infrastructure, use their camps that they started and ran to feed you and take care of you, then yeah, that's the locals that live there. And to be honest, they do a better job. They know the land better, they know the roads better, and they're better at dealing with the locals. And when you have these big white logging shows come in, there is a ton of friction, and there's a ton of racism that comes with that. And I'm like, if somebody came into my town of a different culture, fine. if you come in and start demeaning my culture when you're in my area, I'm going to be upset by that, right? I have white culture. Don't worry, I don't have any real culture. It's just like male. It's not real. Don't worry about my culture. It's not real. Don't worry about it. But if I had real culture, so just seeing that could have made me go such a different way versus like just seeing the disrespect. And then you see how Indigenous people are so aggressively community minded. They will literally like take the racism in stride, be humorous and joyful, and still welcome you in and be respectful. And I'm like, and these are the people we're talking down to that are such beautiful human beings that they will let you come here and then they're still respectful to you no matter how bad you treat them. And it's like, whose side are you going to pick? And I'm like, I am sorry that I am white sometimes. I'm like, I don't want to be on this team. This team sucks, man. Who wants to be on this team? But, I'm very
And
lucky.
Sasquatch,
Oh, good.
that's the thing. You have culture. It's if you're Irish, you have culture. You have Irish culture. You have English
Yes.
Yep.
culture. You have Scottish. That's all
Ukrainian.
Ukrainian. That's
course.
all European culture.
Yeah.
So
But the
white
sad thing
people.
is, I'm also part American. So you know what? I don't want to claim
Well, okay,
I don't want to claim
Melting
it.
pot.
Sasquatch. That's okay. That's okay, my dear.
I'm joking.
You're allowed to claim what you want to claim in your culture. You're Ukrainian. It's all European history and European culture. Very many walks of life have different culture. It's just specific cultures and specific things are for specific people, and that's all. And I find it really funny that this guy his name is Trump 2025.
I
Yeah,
know.
I'm
So
just looking at
okay,
this guy too. I just noticed too. I wanted to just talk to Tammy about you. You asked about the Poilievre's policy declaration. We haven't started talking about that. We were kind of doing a little mental health check-in from an Indigenous perspective, but we can talk about that. There's a couple things I want to say back to Sasquatch, but I also before I do that, I noticed that this Trump 2025 person. I did catch something that individual said about stepping on the toes of real Indigenous people. Who are these real Indigenous people that you're talking about? And do we not look like real Indigenous people to you? Is that what you're implying? Um, if so, you're welcome to leave this space. But if you're here to learn, you're welcome to stay. But we are all Indigenous people in this space. I think maybe Sasquatch may not be, but
No.
Sasquatch joins our conversation all the time because this is a space for everybody. And we like to have conversations with everybody, and we're here to build bridges and not walls. But I wanted to talk a little bit, Sasquatch, you touched on a couple things that are really, I think, so important for us to think about. One is like what you were saying about the acknowledgement of our connection to land. It's also our livelihood. Like when you grew up in a logging family, I think I've heard that from you a couple times, right? And so that was the livelihood of your family, right? We're Indigenous people prior to colonialism. Our livelihood was the land, is the land still to this day. And I've gone to when I've been doing consultations, we go out in the field and we do what's called traditional land use studies. And I've been in, taking out groups of elders and land users, and we go out on the land and we assess the land for traditional land use, the resources that we need, and et cetera. And then we have conversations with the companies about what their plans are. And we have been confronted by pipeliners who think we're there to oppose pipelines, and they get, this is our livelihood and you can't take our jobs from us. And they never for a minute think about the livelihood that's connected to that land for the Indigenous people of that land. I see you, Curtis. I've got one more thought to share and I'll bring it back to you. But that brings me to speaking about traditional land use studies and what you were saying, Sasquatch, about how, you would see that, look back and see that bird on the stump or whatever. It reminded me of, I was doing the traditional land use study for the Trans Mountain Pipeline Project. And there was about 8 or 9 of us out in the field one day, and we just came upon this beautiful place, and the view was majestic, and the trees were old, and it was established, and it was just such this serene, beautiful place. And we were all standing there taking it in and having this moment of just, pure love. And then it hit us. in a year from now, this will be gone because it'll be a pipeline. And it made me think about, when I'm writing this report now for the traditional land use study we were doing, how do I explain this? And we had some, I'm a biologist myself, but I had another biologist, a non-Indigenous person, who did the report writing for us and a lot of the data collections. And I asked him to look up and see if he could find something for us that would explain how we're feeling. And he found it. There's a term called solastalgia. It sounds like nostalgia, but it's solastalgia. And it means the distress that we feel due to environmental change and environmental loss. And that is exactly how I felt, and the elders and the land users that were with me that day, thinking about this beautiful place and how lovely and wonderful we felt to be there, and then that moment of knowing that it was going to be gone. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit, because it is, as we're talking about mental health. And so I'll turn it over to you, Curtis. Go ahead.
Quick thing. We had started at the beginning talking about, Canadian sovereignty and First Nation sovereignty. We had made a treaty with the Crown, the British Crown, England, the King, and Treaty 8, where I'm from. And they always said, as long as the sun shines, the grass grows and the river flows. And they did it by a pipe. So it was a sacred thing. It was a ceremony. And in our belief, the sun, Pisum, he's a supernatural being. And all those things are all powerful. They're all supernatural beings, and they all have spirit and life, like the water and the grass, it grows. So those are things that are powerful, and they can't just be overcome by anybody. So I'm not always worried about being taken over by a foreign power, because I know our treaties are strong and they were made under those agreements. So I have faith in that will be maintained as a people. That's my own thinking. And I was just curious about this Pierre Poilievre policy declaration that you guys were mentioning. I didn't catch the watch the news today. I was busy, so maybe you can enlighten me a little bit about that.
Well, I will Google it while we continue to talk, because I've got my computer here. So let's look it up. And I agree with you, Curtis. Like, I have a lot of faith in also our ancestors and what they knew. I am sometimes scared. Like, I don't know how familiar you are with the Anishinaabe seventh fire prophecy. And, did they choose wrong? Because the sixth fire was right to choose, or is it the seventh fire that to choose, when the white people would choose the path they're going to take, either with us or the other way. And some days it feels like they're choosing the other way. But I'm with you. I do agree about, our sovereignty, our knowledge. It's deep, and it's bigger than any book, or it's spiritual, it's long term, it's deep rooted into earth and knowledge and systems and observation and wisdom that our ancestors, they were so observational. It's amazing when you think back at the things that they knew and understood based on their observation and learning from being part of the land, and how they know these things, right? Like like you said about Pisum and the power of the sun, and we know that water's alive and water is life, and the grass growing is also it's a continuation. Every year we see the grass come back, especially here in the northern climates, like it rests all winter. But we know, even today, I started seeing some of the little songbirds coming back. The geese are coming. We've seen them now for a week or so, 10 days, some ducks. So I agree with you on that, but there's still every once in a while, especially because I work in the resource sector and the duty to consult sector, I feel a little bit concerned about how long are we going to have water? How long are we going to have those plants? Because these colonial systems are powerful, and they want our resources so badly for their wealth and greed, and that scares me a little bit. But I really think because we're having these types of conversations, we're getting together and we're getting stronger, and the more we talk together, and then I go back and I talk to my friends and family, and you all go back and talk to your friends and family, we are building each other up. And I think the Indigenous voice is strong again. And we, not that we were really ever weak, but we were silenced for a little while. And they did their best to make us sick, to beat us down, take our power away from us, but we're still here. So,
There's a book I've been reading, and I have it somewhere around my room. It's buried in a box somewhere. I know it's here somewhere. I just saw it like the other day. It's called The Book of Gratitude and a Good Word. It talks about how the it talks about giving thanks to the earth, thanks to Mother Nature, all that stuff. It just it opened my eyes. And I never really thought about it. But then, I hear what you're saying, like our voices are getting stronger, they're getting louder, they're not going away, they're just keep going and keep going and keep going. And I have a, s- a simple answer for why they're doing what they're doing or trying to do to us or why they don't like us. My only answer is we are the reminders of their ancestors' failures. Because if their ancestors did succeed in getting rid of all of us, we would not be here. There would be no treaties, there would be no peoples who have to consult to the land, and that is why people are so, oh, natives, ew, gross, or whatever they say, right? Because I'm trying to use better wording and not being so angry. I mean, I'm angry, but I'm not trying to be angry, and I'm trying to express myself in a better way because I want to do better. I want to be better.
right.
And that's the only thing I can think of.
Hey guys,
That's awesome.
can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Whitney.
Sorry, I might have to jump off. I'm just waiting for my niece and her tribe
Okay.
of kitties to get here to help me. But I just want to touch on a few things that everybody's been saying before I have to log off.
Please.
I do agree. I do have confidence in the ceremonies and our teachings and our laws and our strength around that. I do have major concerns that what we're dealing with right now is a moment in history when we do need to step up as individuals to collectively protect what our leaders before us and our ancestors have always fought to protect. I am not one who leans politically for any party. I do have my own concerns, even if it's not a popular opinion. I'm concerned with today's Conservative Party, the Maple Mega, the big guys at the top behind it, like Pierre Poilievre and Danielle Smith, because they're coming to remove what they call is the red tape to open extract resources. And when they say things like that, that's a dog whistle. The red tape to provincial governments not being able to just take what they want in the most destructive way is all the federal protections our people and our leadership before us have fought at the federal level to establish. I'm concerned that some of our people are being put in these positions within Maple Mega, in these roles, because they know our people will automatically vote if they see an Indigenous person. And this is not about anybody who's actually running, because I don't know about all of that. I'm speaking on my own experience within my own nation. I have seen over the last 20 years where we have previous leaders who kind of then go out into society and get what I would call shady positions and roles where they become kind of the danger to our treaty rights and protecting our resources. And also, let me see, if anybody's really interested or concerned about today's Conservative Party and why my concerns with them are so high, go look at their platforms in Alberta and at the federal level and just read them. The only place Indigenous people are mentioned in Danielle Smith's Conservative platform are under addictions, talking about how we're pretty much burned into society.
Yep.
They throw scraps at our people to make us think that they're doing good, and they teach people in society that anything Indigenous people are standing up for means that we're fighting against them personally or we're trying to take something away from them. And that's very intentional for generations has been intentional, but we're at a higher level of propaganda right now where these old school dangerous men are grooming our young boys, our vulnerable, and even within our own communities, a lot of our men are under misogyny, right?
Yes.
So we
Oh
have
my
to be
God.
aware that those people could be put into positions where they may be used as tokens by Maker Mega. And I'm sorry, I wish I could stay and hang out longer because I'm really glad I decided to come in today. I really needed it. I don't do this often, ever at
I
all.
know. I was so happy to see you here. So thank you for
I
coming in.
had to debrief because I was trying to bite my tongue on Facebook because it's hard to try to speak to your leaders who are also your elders.
I know.
So
Yeah.
I hope you all have a good day. Thank you.
You too, my friend. Thank you
Do
for
your
joining
due
us.
diligence, people. Do your own
Yes.
due diligence. Don't just trust any person who's put in any position saying, "Oh, I'm going to protect your rights." Or people, do your due diligence and see us, Gus.
That's right. And further to that, and yes, so even when we do have Indigenous people running, please look into the platform of the party they belong to. I don't want to badmouth anybody, but I have had knowledge and awareness that that ex chief of Enoch is close friends with Danielle Smith. I find that a little concerning, personally, for me.
So do I.
And another thing I find concerning is that when you look at the Conservative Party of Canada's declaration, their policy declaration, which Tammy was bringing up in the comments, there's 189 policy points in their declaration. Indigenous issues are 112. That's where we first come up. And what they're talking about with regards to Indigenous matters, they have Indigenous affairs, and they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points. It's Indigenous affairs principles. And why is it Indigenous affairs? We don't even call it Indian affairs, and isn't it the languages I find a little bit problematic, but that's just me. Then the second point is a legislative framework for federal Indigenous expenditures. What does that mean? I haven't done a deep dive into any of this. Then they have another one just called Indigenous affairs. Then it's transparency in Indigenous affairs. That also doesn't sit well with me.
That makes my butt itch.
Respecting the Canadian constitutional framework. Okay, I can get kind of behind that. I need to do a deeper dive. But here's the thing. So these 10 points, there's 10 points under their Indigenous affairs heading. They cover them off in 2 pages in their document. All 10 of those points are covered off in 2 pages. So after that one is a framework for the settlement of comprehensive claims and self-government agreements. That to me is saying we want out of the Indian business. We're going to settle all these claims once and for all and be done with it. And then move into self-government so that they can terminate the fiduciary obligation. That is what I see coming out of the Conservative Party of Canada, is that they want to terminate their obligations that they have to Indigenous people. And there may be Indigenous people that think that that's a great option for Indigenous people and for themselves. And so be it. That's fair. If that is what's in line with your values and priorities. But this to me feels a lot like an assimilation paper. It's much like similar to the white paper. It's just a new language. And it's only 2 pages. How can you have anything meaningful about a relationship that formed this country in 2 pages? And we're number 112 on the list. So I'll leave it at that. But anyway, so that is the policy declaration from the Conservative Party of Canada. It's right on their website, easy to find. And like I said, so it starts on page 29 and it ends on page 31. And then right coming after us is criminal justice. Tell me that's not interesting layout. Anyways, yeah, so let's see. We've got someone else that wants to come up too. Oh, this one might be interesting. It's this
Jody
person.
was in the comments, or she should come up. I wonder if she wants to go up and say anything. Jody
Tammy?
House.
So, Lisa was asking what the topic today is. Today we're talking just about mental health and how we're all doing today. We're kind of checking in to see how we're coping with what's going on in the world. You know, how if there's different ways we do it as Indigenous people, like some of us have ceremony. Curtis and I were talking about how we both like to spend time on the land and in the bush and just hanging out and listening and reconnecting with nature. You know, I smudge when I can. I haven't, I don't know why. I've really struggled with making it something that I do daily, but I do know that like I have these moments where like, oh, I gotta go smudge, and I will go smudge. And, you know, I try to participate in sweat ceremony. Again, it's not something I do as frequently as I probably should, but they do help. I know that that does help. Ceremony is a very beneficial way. I feel a lot better when I come out of ceremony. So it's helped me a lot. Like, you know, especially somebody who's growing up, I grew up Catholic, and I really did love the Catholic Church when I was a kid, oddly enough.
And you know, it's funny that you say that. I got taught by an elder who I was talking to how I smudge, and they had told me smudge your feet first
Yeah.
because you if you smudge your feet first because you walk with your feet, obviously. I mean, if you walk on your hands, that's I all the power to you because I don't get it. Right? But, I mean, it's just the fact that she told me to smudge my feet and then smudge my body. And right now, as I have my feet on the ground, I can feel the earth. I can feel the pulsating through my feet and through my entire body. It's like I'm vibrating, but I'm grounding myself at the same time. So that's a
And
really, really good feeling, I think.
it truly is. It's a good way to kind of like it's healing. And I remember even during the pandemic, and that's when I got on this app, was, you know, we were spending a lot of time at home and we couldn't really go out and be into public places and stuff. So I was like, TikTok, what's that? And so I downloaded the app, and I remembered like that was a big thing even during the pandemic, right? Get outside, reconnect to the earth, put your feet on the ground. And that's something I've always done. I'm a barefooter by just, you know, nature. I don't like having socks and shoes on my feet. So if I can be out, even when it's getting a little bit like, you know, the ground is thawing a bit, you know, I'll go out on the deck without my shoes on, and I'll kind of run across the snow quickly, but I don't spend a lot of time without shoes yet. But as soon as I can, as soon as it's warm enough, I'll be out there barefoot. And okay, what else do we want to chat about? And today my energy level is really low too, and I think that's part of it. Is just I feel heavy, and I went for a walk prior to starting up the live, and I even on my walk I was sluggish, and I didn't know what direction I wanted to go, and I kind of just stood in the trees for a little bit and looked around and just kind of walked slowly, where I usually kind of go for a good, you know, good jaunt, but today I just kind of moved through the forest for about 30 minutes and found my way back out to the house already. But Sasquatch, I
It's
see
a
you
Monday.
Well, and that's just that might just be your body. And even, if you go for a short walk, maybe the ground is telling you, hey, you're allowed to go home and have a rest.
Yeah.
Some days I'm very, very lucky. So I live in Mackenzie, BC, and I kind of live in a little, suburban area here. And within 5 minutes, there are two lakes by me. I am
Oh,
so, so grateful to live here. And there's days where, like if I'm dog sitting for my brother's dogs or my iguana, I take him to the lake. And some days we go, and some days I go, and I can just tell it's like I'm tired. I need to go home. And there's some days where the iguana will walk back and go climb in the car, and I'm like, oh, okay, that was a short visit. I guess we're going home now. And as much as it recharges us, maybe, and I don't know where it comes from, but when I was a kid, we had this tree in our yard, and I swear this tree could talk to me. And I know I sound crazy, but this tree, if I was having a bad day, I would go and sit in this tree. And I love this tree because when we were kids, we would, have McDonald's, it's a soccer day or something. And I spilt this like whole big thing. It was for me and my sister to share this root beer. And it dumped all over the base of this tree.
oh.
And I swear this tree always smelled like root beer. It was like It was some very generic, like it would not have that smell. And it always smelled like root beer. And this was just like my little happy place. And if I was having a bad day, I would just climb up into that tree. And it just felt like you got a hug from that tree. And I would just sit in that tree. And everybody just knew, just leave me alone. I'm in my tree. I didn't have a tree fort. I just sat there on the branches. And it's very like, does anyone else like look up? Sometimes you just look up at the sky and you look in the morning, like today you're gonna have a good day,
Yeah.
or what, today is gonna be a challenging day. Maybe get ready for that and prepare yourself. There's days I go up and I look out the window, I go, even if it's a nice day, today's going to be a challenging day. And I'm going to have an
Um,
extra long shower today. I'm going to have a little longer. Like that's I don't feel comfortable participating in an Indigenous ritual by myself. I don't feel comfortable. That does not feel right to me.
Right.
But, I have my skincare and I'll take care of my skin and I'll wash my feet and do a scrub. And I got a massage a couple weeks ago. I got a massage from this lovely lady here, and she's in her 50s and she's rubbing my back. She goes, I've been doing this for 30 years. You're the most tense person I've ever felt. I go, wait till you get to my legs. And she goes, your legs feel like concrete with rocks stuck
Oh
in
my
it.
God.
She's like, she felt so bad. She gave me a few essential oils to take home and put in my belly button when I sleep. And she gave me a tool to work the knots out. And she goes, if you're going into heavy duty mechanics, my son and my husband both did that. She goes, you need to listen to your body and you need to relax and you need to take care of your body. And it's like, you kind of bump out, and sometimes people or the ground or the air will just tell you like you need to prioritize some relaxation. And I'm a
um,
very tense person. I'm not good at that, but I am trying.
It's a practice, that's for sure. And I noticed one of the commenters, Lisa, was saying she likes to sing and dance. You know what it reminded me of is
Me
power.
too. Me
right.
too.
And
I listen to Motley Crue and dance in the shower. I don't know if with a Red Bull it's probably not the same, but that's my white
No,
culture coming out,
no.
guys.
love
That's
it.
my white culture coming out.
I love it.
Again, it's my friend told me to go hug a tree because I was angry, and I did,
Aww. Did
and
it help?
actually it did,
Good.
and it's
Trees
just
care. As a logger, like sometimes you just like, I don't know, like I always felt guilty, and it's like trees have something. Like
they
there's
have
something
feelings.
there. There is like even like, especially poplars because they grow fast and skinny, and they actually sacrifice themselves, and they'll break and fall, and they protect all the other like the Douglas fir and your lodgepole pine, and they will sacrifice themselves to protect the little trees to grow. Like when you touch a poplar, it's different. You touch a fir, it's different. Like it's I don't know if I sound like a crazy person, but
You know,
trees
No, no,
have
no, no, no. We're
something.
not crazy. We're
we're
unique in our experiences.
and it's
Yeah.
real. You know, Sasquatch, I made a video yesterday when I was on my walk and I haven't posted it yet. And I think you're going to like it. I'm not going to tell you about it, but I'll post it later and I'll tag you in it.
I'm excited.
Cause yeah, I too talk to trees and they know me, and they're interesting, and I'm not I love that your story about being up in your tree when you were younger, and I have another story I wanted to share about a friend of mine who's from the Piikani First Nation, and I'm sure I will honor him later. I'll let him know I've told his story, but he said this story publicly, so I hope he's going to be okay with me telling it. But it's about the connection with the cottonwood forest in southern Alberta, and along the Old Man River, the cottonwoods have grown there for hundreds of years, but they were put at risk, that ecosystem's at risk because of the Old Man River Dam, because the cottonwoods rely on floods to keep them healthy and for their reproduction, and that for that forest to have its health. It's just it evolved there, right? That's how where that area on the Old Man River is traditionally flooded. Well, once they built that dam in the 90s, of course the flooding has stopped. But he would tell a story to, especially to government officials, because sometimes government people have a hard time understanding our connection to land. And he would tell the story about how traditionally the Blackfoot there, they didn't bury their dead, their deceased. They would put them in the trees and leave their offerings there, and so they would be closer to Creator. And he said, so then those folks that would be left there, and that was their resting space, you know, eventually the birds would feed on them and whatever. And of course, that body would decompose and would definitely make itself to the ground or be absorbed by the tree or whatever. And he would say to people, if you check those cottonwood forests, you will find my DNA. Because he said our people have evolved with those trees, and that connection to those trees was so real and so deep for those people there that that story lives inside of me, and I felt such gratitude to hear it from him, and I cried when I heard him tell this story because honestly, right, when you think about them, the Blackfoot being in those regions for thousands of years now, of course our DNA has been intermingled with the species that we share this land with. And again, it always brings me back to hearing Nijan Sinclair, late Murray Sinclair's son, at a conference. He spoke out and he said, you know, us Indigenous people, First Nations, Métis, Inuit, we're not environmentalists. We're fighting for our relations. And those relations are the trees, the standing people, the four-legged, the swimmers, the flyers, the crawlers. And that's just so meaningful to me. And I think, again, that's why, like what Curtis was saying earlier too, and Sasquatch, even for you, like you spend a lot of time in your life on the land, and that's a place where we heal. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. Okay, we got somebody in the conversation, so let's invite this person up and see what you've got to say. I believe it's Kingston. Hi, Kingston. How are you today?
Yup.
Pretty good. I'm gonna fill up my water, but I can still hear you. I'll be right back.
Alrighty.
Go ahead.
Alrighty, right? I got this.
Quiet.
It's real Oleg Alitcha, right? So there's a dude. His name was freaking Umashame, and he lived up the Nimkish River, boys and girls. He lived right up there. It was really good, and his name means like born noble or like something like that. And one day Umashame was waiting around. He's like, oh, I heard there's gonna be a flood, and then right, so he takes his he takes his canoe and he goes to Hopetown. I actually don't remember the name for the Hopetown people, but you know, he like went up there and he just anchored his canoe at the mountain, and then when the waters rose off, he was real good. He was safe, and he came back down and he went back home. And he's like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna go up to the Neatmount canoe, which is the upriver people, right? So he goes up there, he takes his canoe, boom, flies right up there, and then one day he was hunting elk up there, and he knows he was following these elk, and he's like, oh, I don't recognize where I am. I gotta go home. So he goes back to his house and he grabs his cedar bark head ring and he puts some eagle down in it to bless himself. And he takes some food and he's off. And he's just following the same trail that he made yesterday. And then he gets to this river and he follows it and it leads it right out to the ocean. And then he sits down on this log. He was real tired, real down bad tired, you know. And then he sees this man, and then this man sees him. And that man's name is Quanqualash, and it's like a Thunderbird dancer kind of guy. So Quanqualash sees him, and he goes back to his people, and he's like, "There's just a dude up there. There's just a medicine man up there. Let's go get him." And then they hop in their canoes, they go up through the river, boom, right up there, and they pick him up, and then they go back to the village, right? And then he's like, and they really like his cedar headband thing. So they're like, okay, I want that. You know, traded great gifts. But he didn't want to give away all of it. So he just cut it up. Right? And then he gave some away, but he got these sea otter pelts back in return. And then he goes up that trail again. And then he goes back to his house and he throws this real big potlatch. It was the first of its kind. He like give away such good gifts. And then he used that trail to trade more stuff. We would trade Galitna down it. Galitna is a type of fish oil. that you get from the hooligan fish, and then from there, when they first met the Mamashas, right? When they first met the white people, they would trade them guns, and then we get the guns up that trail, and then we go down south and kill the southern people and take their land. There you go.
Wow, that's an thank you for sharing, Kingston. I'm sorry, I should have asked your name before you started, or I mean your age, because for TikTok we have to make sure
Oh
everybody's
yeah, me. I was born 2006. Yeah,
okay. Thank
2006.
you.
Teenager, don't worry.
So you're old enough.
Yeah, I'm old enough now, eh?
Yeah. All right. So okay, well that's a like where and what part of the country are you in Canada?
Yeah. I am. Oh, I'm
Are
real.
you
Oh, good. I'm real. Kowakiwak.
in BC?
Close. Yeah.
Okay. You know, such beautiful lands that you have, and your stories are so much. I find them different because your relationship with the crown is different than the prairie relationship that we have. And you know, I've always worked in Alberta or Saskatchewan primarily, mostly Alberta, a little bit in northeast BC. So I don't have as much knowledge about the coastal people, but I've read some books and things, and everything I've learned is just beautiful. And I've been having some opportunities to work with some First Nation people from BC, and the power, the powerful voices and experiences that BC First Nations bring to the table. Because still, you know, like I know some are still negotiating modern treaties, asserting title, and really to have a different relationship with with the provincial government than what we have here in the prairies. So I'm always interested in meeting people from BC. So thanks for joining our conversation.
No
And
problem.
how about you when it comes to dealing with mental health? Or are you a ceremonialist, or you like to be on the land too? Or is there something
Probably,
special
you
that you
know, but
do?
I don't know. I don't get sad often, so I don't know. I just cry it out, eh? I guess.
Oh, you know what? That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It is. It truly is. It's kind of like how Curtis started the evening tonight, talking about, you know, we've been through so much that we'll get through all of this too. And, you know, there's so many things too that we should be grateful for and remember our blessings. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Alrighty. Thank you guys for letting me come up. I was gonna come up and tell that one story.
Thank you for sharing the story. You're welcome. We're here every Monday night.
Awesome. Thank you, Kingston.
You're welcome. Don't worry. Anytime, eh? Alrighty. Halak.
Okay,
Halak.
take care. Kinanas Compton now. Well, that was interesting.
That
Awesome.
was
I love that.
right.
Yeah, I'm hoping Kingston, you should make a video so we can I'd like to hear that story again, actually. That's one thing I love about our stories is we can hear them so many times, and there'll be something I missed the first time I heard it, you know, and then you kind of get to come away every time you hear a story or a teaching with something
Right.
new. Yeah, it's pretty
Oh, I
awesome.
was gonna say something because you mentioned Murray Sinclair's son. I actually started reading his book. Oh my God. It literally brought me to tears.
Awesome. I know. I haven't read that. I haven't read his book yet. I've got a pile of books that I want to try to start reading. Wow, look at it. The sun is changing. Look at Curtis Beesum. He's Beesum is here right now in my it's so nice to see the days
You know,
getting longer.
you
Like
know what I
just last week I was oh no, last week I was in Ottawa, so I can't speak, but the
one
week before it wasn't here in my face like
one
this.
thing I do to the sun, I always when he's coming up in the morning, right when he comes up, I put reach out both my hands to him. I do that all like try to do that, greet him every day.
I
Yeah.
love that. And I'm not a big morning person, so oftentimes the sun is up when I'm before I get up. But as the days get longer, I do definitely get up earlier. And but like you know, even if I'm out in the bush in the afternoon, I'll stop for those few minutes and just soak in the sun and feel the warmth on my face and think about everything. And water. You know, do you find too being around like a river or stream, just that little sound of water flowing? is such
Oh,
a peaceful thing.
I don't know about you guys, but I always have to dip my toe in the water. It don't matter how cold it
Yeah.
is. I just have to put my foot in the water. My
Yeah.
mom said I've always been a water baby.
Me
So it's
too.
just dip my toe in the water and go swimming and yeah.
Me too. When I was about, I want to say 7, we were at, I think it was Finger Lake, and there's a big dock, and it was spring break, so it was March, so like right now, and it was frozen. And if we would jump through the ice, which I mean, my parents were crazy, but if we jumped through the ice, the first one to jump would get $20, and then that kid would buy a pop and worms for all of us to fish for the rest of the week. Because as we
Oh,
stayed there, it would thaw, and you could kind of fish off the dock. My parents were crazy; they would stand there, but if one kid was brave enough, and it was me, I think every single year it was me, but
that's awesome.
oh, I just love the water. We behind us, so the way Mackenzie is, there's kind of green belts between a lot of the streets, and they're like these draws, so they go down and they kind of have open clearings where there's not houses, and they'll push the snow, the city. It's very cheap too. It's a really good way to do it. And the grader will kind of pile it up, and then the loader pushes it to the edge, and it melts. Instead of melting and making the streets icy, it melts down into these natural draws, right? So it's a little bit this time of year, and the next month it's like a rushing waterfall. It's like and it's right, it's, I'm in my front driveway. I'm maybe 120 feet from this little river. And in my backyard, I'm like 50 feet from this little river. And it's just this little raging river. And we get like, there was actually a coyote was climbing. I don't know how he got up there, but he was on my neighbor's greenhouse barking at me the other night. And then there's the moose like to go through there. And then the bears love to go through there. So it's like this little pocket, this little nature corridor, and they will come off the street, but typically they stay in this little green belt, and they follow that water, and they go right back to the bush, and they're so like respectful. They kind of stay out of your yard.
Aw.
They're trying to be safe, and I can always tell at night if there's moose back there, because the moose like to come there at night. And my iguana will start shaking his head. It's always like 9 o'clock at night, and he shakes his head and shakes his head, and I go, "Is there moose out there?" And he licks. If there's a moose, he'll lick. I go, "Okay, okay." He's like he's like my little nature ambassador. He just every creature just loves him. He hangs out, the crows all fly, and they'll sit in the yard with him. And then if you try and swat like a bug, like if you try and swat a bug off him, he'll get mad and hit you. He tells you, "No, that's my friend. Like, you leave that bug alone. That's my friend." He's so sweet. I don't know how I
That's
got so
awesome.
lucky, but he's just a very sweet little guy. And like sometimes I'm having a bad day and I just look at him, he's sun tanning in his garden with the little bees and butterflies all around him. I'm like, you know what? This guy's got it figured out. Like, I'm just gonna go sit in the sun. I think this guy's got it figured all
Right?
out.
I swear our fur babies and the animals that we share space with, even our pets or even the like wild animals too, they bring us joy and healing. And I'm just looking at Mackenzie on the map here on Google Map. I've never been there. So hopefully one day I'll make my way there. It looks like a lovely place to visit.
it's
I
a
wanted
very
to
it's a
add, I
very
want
it's a very
oh,
nice place if you like outdoor stuff. Sometimes we'll have like there'll be kind of like music kind of stuff. There's not enough
ooh,
indigenous stuff going on up here in my opinion, but there's lots of like they'll do like music festivals and like kind of like there's a little BMX thing and hockey tournaments. But if you like being outside and you enjoy nature, it's beautiful here. It's very, if you can go to town and in 5-10 minutes you can't hear a sound, you can't hear a car. You are out in the middle of nowhere. There's moose out on the road, and you are in nature. So if you like nature, it's a very, very nice place to
it
be.
looks, and I'm looking at this Takla landing too that you were talking about. Wow, that looks so remote and beautiful. But you remember when we were just talking a little while ago, Sasquatch, and I was saying how my energy level seems low and stuff. And we were talking about how we should take those times to rest when we need to and take care of ourselves. I wanted to ask like everybody, we have a society where I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel guilty if I'm not doing the things I feel like I got work to do, or I should be cleaning my house, or I should be doing laundry, or I should be outside organizing my shed, or whatever. And we do this to ourselves, and I find it really challenging to undo that conditioning because that's a capitalist
Yep.
conditioning
Have
to
some
be productive. And how do you guys have any tricks on how you allow yourself to to take those breaks and have a
for my
rest when you need to?
for
I
myself.
always Oh, I was gonna say, I always just say that if my heart and my head is not in the right place, I'm not productive anyway. So if my head is not in the right place, then you know what? I'm scrambling around, I'm angry, I'm dropping stuff, and I'm not productive anyway. So as someone with borderline personality disorder and diabetes, if I'm cranky, I check my sugars. If my sugars are good, I
Mm.
go, why are you triggered emotionally right now, and what has happened? And I'll sit and go, okay, well, I called my mom yesterday and she invalidated my experience, and that's okay. My experience is validated. And I sit down and I go, okay, I'm all right. My head's right, and I get to work. And that works very well for me.
Okay, good. Thank you. And um, anyone else before I see we've got the pasty native came and joined us. So if anyone else wants to add, Smarchy, I saw you had your mic off. Did you want to add to that?
I didn't even notice I had my mic off. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. And
I've
Curtis,
just
I see you too.
I've just been reading a lot of our Indigenous culture books, and I find them very fascinating. So it's been giving me a run for my money, and it's educating and it's opening my mind and seeing things. I'm reading the Mary Sinclair book, Who Are We? And then I'm reading the Seven Generations or the Seven Teachings of the Grandfather. So that's intense
Nice.
though.
That's it. Yeah, awesome. I put books down for too long. I used to read so much, but then like in my job, I have to read a lot. Like just emails and reports and things, but it makes
Mhm.
me feel like I don't want to read in the evenings for sure. But I'm trying to pick it back up again, especially when I'm on planes and stuff. I may as well be reading. But, Curtis, did you want to add anything? I saw that you had your
Uh,
mic on.
for over 20 years, I was a workaholic. I went to university, got a degree. Then I worked like nonstop, full time, and then was constantly working. And then this year I finally took a break and I went on EI. So I just chilled the winter, and I love it.
For you.
Because life gets too busy, and sometimes we do things for other people, and we're too busy, and we collect money and we put it in the bank account, but we're always working and always working. And I was doing that too. Like I'd work and then I'd come home and I'd do work at home, like housework or yard work, or someone need me to do something, I go volunteer. I was a workaholic. I felt I needed to do something, and now I'm just turning to chill. And if I want to read a book, I'll read a book. If I don't, I'll just chill and go on TikTok, and I'm just chilling. So, and
Good
that's
for
sometimes
you.
you gotta take time for yourself, because there's always work. Like you could just like I asked one of my cousins once. He worked up in Syncor Suncrude for like I don't know how many years. He worked there like God, maybe 20, 30 years, maybe even longer. And
Wow.
I asked him, "Why did you work so long?" And you worked a long time. Like this guy worked 12-hour shifts or even longer, sometimes more. Every day. Made a lot of money, and I said, "Why did you work so much?" And he said, "Well, no one told me to stop. No one will ever tell you to stop if you don't stop." you
Oh
know?
wow.
So yeah.
It's fun. Thanks for bringing that up because Perry and I were both working in Musquecheese, and I was burnt out. Like, I think I've said this before in other lives, and maybe even in some videos I've made. Like, this is the reality working for in a First Nation, right? We often on the management team, many folks on around that table are wearing multiple hats and doing, you have a lot on your plate. And I was getting so burnt out. And we had a little bit of a nest egg that we're going to do a house renovation with. And then when we left our jobs, because we both left at the same time, and we decided to take 6 months off and just live on our renovation money. We didn't do the renovation, but you know what? It was kind of like the best gift I think that we ever gave ourselves because it was a time to heal and get rest and just kind of
I,
regroup. So
I
I
have
really
something I'd like to add.
yes, Whitney, go ahead.
So I relate so much to both you and Curtis right now because I was the same. Like I started working when I was 14 years old, and I went to school and did a full-time job from 14 to 20 until I had my son. And from that moment on, I knew my goal and my responsibility was just to work provide a safe home, a clean home, do all the right things, pay into all the right places. That was my job, right? So I just spent the last 30 years being a workaholic, working, my background's in corrections. I my recent job the last 12 years is working with our kids in the schools, which is like the most important job anybody can have. But anyway, um 3 years ago, my body gave out on me. Like overnight, I went from being someone who could not stop physically and mentally to being bedridden for 18 months in pain. And
Oh,
being stuck in the Alberta healthcare system as an Indigenous woman was in itself traumatizing. So it's really important to realize that all of us doing the hard work in our communities and with our people, like a lot of people in society don't think it, they think that the hard work's not happening. But us living it, we know it's an everyday thing. And we're not able to leave our jobs at home, like they say, right? Because our jobs are home, they are our people. So I'm slowly getting better. I'm never going to be the same as I was, but being stuck at home on disability, I've had to teach myself. I took up gardening like you wouldn't believe, like saving seeds, planting from scratch. I took up blanket making. I do wood burning. I have my nieces over as much as I can. Like I've had to really take care of my mental health being stuck at home after being a workaholic
yeah.
by finding new things. So take the time, all my Indigenous people out there doing the hard work in our communities. I know people think it's not happening, but we're living it. Take the time, go out to the bush, get out to the mountains, go to the water, leave your tobacco, all that stuff.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
so,
And
yeah.
thank you also for bringing it up because about, many of us Indigenous people, the work we do is for our people. It's for our elders, for our youth, fighting for our rights, trying to make better life for our people. And we can't turn our computer off at 4:30 and just be done because it lives in us, right? It's part of our own entity. And my mom used to give me crap all the time. You need to learn how to just turn it off at the end of the day. I'm like, I don't know how I do that. I just don't know how to do that. And I still don't. I struggle with, like I remember writing emails in my sleep. I would be dreaming about work. And I could wake up in the morning and come to my computer and write that email that I was dreaming about.
And on
And
top of
so,
that, there's all our social issues and personal issues of addictions within our families, loss of family members. There's so much other stuff on top of just being a workaholic, and it all eventually is going to take its toll if we don't learn how to balance. And I'm living proof of that.
yeah, your body forced you to take the break you needed. And, thanks for bringing up the addiction side of things too. Like I struggled with alcohol for, that was how I coped for quite a
Right.
while. And it took me that 6 months to put the bottle away, to, to realize that. And also like my body was telling me, hey, lady, stop. You can't do this
Right.
anymore. Like I was getting really sick. And,
Well,
so it was a struggle though because I grew up with drinkers. So it's just learned behavior, right? And you come home from work, you pour a drink. And so I've had to change that, and it's been an interesting journey. Sorry, Smarty, go ahead, my friend.
and I've been sober. Oh God, no, God, now 2020. I've been sober 12 years, and it's like
Oh,
every day, every day with these orders, I just want to drink a little bit more so I can drink some more, so I can so I can get like I'm sober, but I want to drink because I don't want to remember any of the like. I feel like I'm waiting. I feel like personally, the whole bottle thing is like I'm just gonna go grab a bottle. It'll be fine. You
yeah,
know, it'll be okay. It'll be good. It's we got this. It's one drink, and I'm like I'm sitting there, look outside myself, and I'm like, no, like you're gonna fall apart again, and it's just with
yeah,
all this stuff. And my dad found the best way for me to get my anger out, and he was doing demolition in the garage. He gave me a sledgehammer and he's like, have at her, destroy anything you want in here. I'm
Nice.
like, Okay, I can't be held responsible if anything gets damaged, though. You
I
know,
love
like,
that. I love that.
That
but
must have been
knowing,
fun.
oh, not really, because it was too heavy, and I was like, and I have a bummed arm, so
Oh,
I'm like, I'm trying to hit it correctly, and I did a couple times, and then my arm just kind of like started like getting limp, and I'm like, no, so I had to give up. But my anger pretty much dissipated after that.
whenever
Aw.
whenever I'm angry, I get in my little piece of crap, little front wheel drive, little 4-cylinder J body, and I go actually rip the exhaust. Like I ripped the flex pipe and ripped my exhaust right off my car last year.
Yeah.
And I will just go and I will just whip this thing around like a race car. Actually, a few people have said once you're a mechanic, you really need to put a roll cage in those things because you are a rally car driver and do it. You're good at it, but you really need to think about possibly an all-wheel drive vehicle, and a roll cage might be a good idea for you, and upgraded suspension because you do what you do, but that's not really the right vehicle for it. But when I'm angry, yeah, I go out and there's roads here where they're not deactivated, but there's no active logging. There's not really
Right.
much going on for like people out there recreationally. You don't need a radio, so I go out about 20 minutes, half an hour, and I just go and rat bag my car, and then I just fix it, and then I get mad and yell at my car, and then we do repeat the cycle over again.
Hey, you found what works for you, but let's hear from Pasty Native. He's our newest beaver. Him and Sean have a new show also. So welcome, Pasty Native. I'm so happy to see you here this evening.
Hello. I just kind of wanted to share a story about like my first encounter after trying to reconnect with community. Uh, and once we started talking more about our indigeneity and stuff, was because I'm spent a lot of time on the Manitoulin Island, which would be my homeland area from where our indigenous side comes from.
Nice.
And I remember being about 13 years old and walking in behind the house in the woods, and a timber wolf came out in front of me, and it stopped and it stared at me. And because my nerdy ass was just after I had just watched Harry Potter and The Prisoner of Azkaban. So I bowed to the wolf like they did in front of Buckbeak, the hippogriff, and just kind of stood there making eye contact, and the wolf bowed back and then continued on its way.
Oh, wow.
That is so amazing. And I just got up because I have these posters of the sacred teachings, and the wolf is humility. So that's kind of, I love that you shared that. And if you don't mind, I'll read about what the teaching on my poster says. Humility
love
is
that.
being humble, not arrogant. The wolf represents humility because of its giving nature and devotion to protecting and working for the good of the wolf family and the welfare of the pack. Wolves mate for life and are generous and loving parents, setting an example of what our communities and family systems should be. Native people have great respect for the wolf because of its love for family and its protective instincts. What a beautiful, oh, that's so amazing that you saw that wolf and so
It was so
uncommon.
surreal.
Wow. What a blessing. That's a true blessing. Thank you
It's
for
definitely
sharing.
something I carry with me and have since.
And does it help you? Like, do you think back to that moment when you're struggling, or is that something that helps you through moments when you're having mental health days?
Yeah, along with, I'm very thankful because here in Ottawa there's quite a bit of green spaces and bush. So when we first moved here, when I was a teenager, for a little bit, there was a sugar bush pretty much dead center of the city, and I'd go walk there, so I felt like I was home.
That's so awesome. Gee, I was just in Ottawa last week. We could have gone for coffee. Darn it. But one thing I really loved, my daughter and I were in Ottawa I forget, like a year ago, maybe a little longer. And first time I'd seen the groundhogs. And that was so
They're
cool to see
everywhere.
them. I know, they're so cute.
They are everywhere here in Ottawa. You'll see them on the side of roads or beside schools.
It's such a lovely city though, really. And I like, I found it's a little bit dirtier than when I remember when I was a kid when I was there. But,
Yeah,
um,
it's even in the last 10 years, like it's
yeah.
gotten worse, I find. I was surprised because like a month ago there was a group of turkeys just up from the St. Laurent Center.
Turkeys.
Wild
Like wild
turkeys, yeah.
turkeys? Wow. That's so cool. We don't have wild turkeys in Alberta, but isn't it interesting? Animals too, I feel they ground me for sure. Like yesterday,
Oh yeah.
Perry and I were out and about and we had a great day for wildlife. We saw coyotes, three of them on different occasions, and then we saw multiple groups, little herds of deer. We saw two moose together. We saw a bald eagle. We saw a seagull, and then seagulls are really important to me because it's my sign of spring. The day I see a seagull, I know spring is here. And I feel like there was something else now I can't remember what it was. But when I have those encounters with wildlife, it just renews my energy and makes me feel hopeful. I love when they come
See,
out and present themselves to us.
I wouldn't mind seeing a moose bar distance, but
Oh,
I
I'm going to
went
tell you a
camping.
moose story.
I
Especially
went
if you see
camping.
them, if you ever see them and you can see the white of their eyes and patchy, they are angry from ticks. So give them, and of course, Mama Moose, give
Mm,
them extra space when they have those ticks. I give
no,
them
no, no,
extra
no,
room.
no,
They're
no, no,
so
no.
angry.
I went camping when I was like 14, maybe. I was like really, really young at this point. And I went to go like take the trail that we usually go to, like go around the camp. There was a bull moose standing right in front of me.
Ooh, you
Oof.
know, I, I'm a biologist, right? So I've spent some time in the bush, and I've moved bushes over, doing some surveys and stuff, and whoops, I run into a bear. But I am the most scared of running into a moose because I've even met
Actually,
forestry guys that have been chased. One guy I know, he was chased for 4 kilometers. He had to dive into, finally found a thicket of like thick willows that he dove
yeah.
into. But
Can I
it's
tell a
funny.
Can I tell a story about a moose?
Yeah, please do.
So when I first moved here, there's a really cool guy here, and he's got a little farm. And actually, I buy eggs from him. And he's calling. My mom's phone is going off, and I'm going, Mom, like you need to answer your phone. I don't know who this Dieter person is, but someone's calling your phone. And she picks up, and she's like, oh my god, oh my god, and she's, oh my god, yeah, yeah, I'm bringing backup. I'm coming. And I'm like, look at her. I'm like, what? And he goes, and she goes, get in the car. We're gonna go. And he's about 20 minutes from town. She goes, he's got a baby moose that's been abandoned on his property, and they found a cow moose had been hit on the highway, and he's pretty sure he lives right on the highway 39. He goes, he's pretty sure this is her calf, and he goes, he can't keep her there because he's got animals, he's got big dogs running around, and the little moose was so terrified, and he goes, but this moose is
Oh.
like following him. So I decide to take this moose, of course, because I am known as Snow White. I'm known as redneck Snow White because animals and children love me. I don't know why, but they just love me. So I had a little like a mosquito net kind of tent that was just sheer mesh. It was about late May. It was still pretty cold. So I got to have a sleepover with this little baby moose. And we got what was it? It was like a certain kind of milk that we had to use. I don't remember what it was, but there was something special that we were supposed to use. The cow's milk wasn't good for its stomach. So it was something, maybe it was water with a bit of salt for electrolytes. Anyway, so I got to have a sleepover. I can repost it, but I had this little baby moose with me, and it followed me everywhere, and it would wake me up in the night, and it would nuzzle me and wake me up, and it had to pee, and it would go out of the door and go and pee outside of the tent. It was the smartest little creature, and tricking it to go, like bylaw came and took it to like a wildlife sanctuary where it got to live with other moose. So it went to a good place, but trying to trick it to go into that kennel, and it was just whining and trying to get to me. I was like,
Aw.
I'm so sorry, little friend. And
Oh my gosh.
so I got to have a little camping sleepover with a little baby moose, and it slept nuzzled its little butt nuzzled into me all night and was trying to crawl in my sleeping bag. It was so cute.
I love that. My moose story is not quite as endearing, but I was up in the bush here, I think last summer, and it was about this time of year actually. And I like going through the black spruce. Hey, like I love that little. I kind of feel like you're in the, the what is it, the House of Mirrors or whatever at the carnival, because you got to dodge around all the little trees and stuff. And I got into an area where there was a little bit more openings, right? And it wasn't as dense, and I could hear my dog was ahead of me, and he went running off, and I could hear something coming, and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" And it was coming loud. And my other dog, she looks over and she runs one direction, and all I could do was step aside as this moose ran right by me. I could have touched her, and she's looking me in the eye like,
Wow.
"Why did you bring these dogs out here?" And my other dog was chasing her, and I thank goodness, like she was, she wasn't coming for me, but she was scared because he had flushed her out from somewhere. But that was a close call. I'm like, oh my god, because I don't know if my husband would have found me if something would have happened, because I was in the really dense forest. I like your
Aw.
story much better, Sasquatch.
Oh, Sean, and here I am scared of pigeons. Those things are evil.
Pigeon.
Oh no.
I think they're pretty cute, but they're yeah, they're interesting when they get in their big flocks, eh?
But when I was walking away from this moose, it kept following me. I'm like, no, go the other way. I was
Oh,
trying to shoo it
interesting.
away. And it was following me all the way. And I was walking in a zigzag because my uncle's like, go very, very slowly, but go zigzag because their legs can't catch the pattern you're going in. And I'm like, yeah, no, this thing is following me. Help. And
And
then
you
all
were
these
only
kids,
14.
I was like 5 to 150 pounds, and this thing's like following me, and I'm like, can we someone like just like
Yeah.
get me into a truck or something? Just like I'm just it was a male moose actually, I believe it or not.
Well, you're here to talk about it, so it obviously was a not a terrible experience.
It's not, but it was, but it like just looking about it now, I'm like, why was that thing following me? It never made sense to me. Now it does.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is a blessing of sorts, hey? Yeah. I love when I have encounters with wildlife. And my parents are both, it's so weird. My parents both grew up in rural areas in Saskatchewan. My dad's Indigenous, and they're both like, "Aren't you scared out in the bush?" I'm like, "No." I'm honestly more scared, like, even in some of the small towns and the city now. Like, I never was scared in the city either before, but the city's getting a little bit, mm, you know,
I've only lived in the city for about 8 years of my whole life. Just the last 8 years, I was always blessed to be able to grow up, on my land and in my community up until about 8 years ago. And I feel you on that. I feel so much more unsafe in the city than I have ever felt in my life, like than being on the res.
yeah.
It's, this misconception that the res is this scary, dangerous place that people push and it's not just society who kind of pushes that. I think, like, unfortunately, because of our historical generational trauma of the 60s scoop and being removed or having the trauma, that's kind of a misconception a lot of people might have of every single reserve is one way, right?
It's
They miss the
interesting.
beauty. I was blessed to see the beauty, is I guess is what I'm saying. I'm very
Yeah.
fortunate, and I don't take that for granted that I was blessed to see the beauty of it.
And your res is so beautiful. When I was a
Oh,
kid, Anderson Road was the end of town.
Exactly.
Sutina was out of town still.
We're being
And
surrounded. We are
oh, I
literally
know.
being surrounded. It's
Yeah, but you do have such beautiful land there and beautiful places. Like, I've spent some time in Sutina myself, and having grown up in Calgary, it's so just so gorgeous. Even where I grew up in Calgary, you know, I live. So you know, I know you know where the carriage house is. I grew up in
I'm
those.
right across the street from it.
I
Well,
know.
for another week.
I can tell where you are because I know that neighborhood. Acadia is my traditional territory.
Wow. Stop
I
it,
grew up on
Ryan.
90th Avenue. I went to
Oh,
St.
nice.
Matthew's. But
Okay.
anyways, I see Curtis. You got your hand up, my friend.
Go ahead, Curtis.
Things, Pierre Poilievre's policy thing. Did you look it up? That declaration. And then the
Yep.
other thing was, I was on Facebook, and someone posted something about this one white guy. He did a YouTube video when he goes onto a reserve, and he just has this real negative opinion of the res. And he does a tour, like he shows the reserve. He stands there and he says, "I'm going on an Indian reserve," and then he drives around. He says, "Look at the poor housing of the Indians," and just like,
That was out in Sixiga.
yeah, and he says, "Look at these dogs running out." It's just like he gives the worst opinion. Like,
Ugly.
yeah, he was just like, I was just looking at who the hell does this white guy think he is? You know?
I'm pretty sure they're looking into trespassing for that.
Good. And
Good.
I'm sorry. That's it. Like, it's the disparity is what you're witnessing when you go out and see that, you know, the standard of living isn't as high as it is anywhere else, and people should feel bad about that instead of judging
Just so
it.
people are aware that if a First Nation does not have their own trespassing bylaw, my nation does. So we're allowed to set our rates and our penalties for that. But if a First Nation in Canada doesn't have one, the only way a person can be charged for trespassing is under the Indian Act, which requires the officer to go to the court first, get permission to lay the charge. Then they have to physically go find the person that did the trespassing and serve them the court notice. And the fine, the highest fine they can get for it is $1,000.
And it has to
That,
be RCMP that enforces
Yeah.
it, right?
oh, so good luck
I'm
with
pretty
that.
sure. See, with my First Nation police, because we're
Well, yeah,
a,
you guys have tribals.
we do, and because we're federal, we also have the same, like, okay, so Alberta, Calgary City Police are bound by their own jurisdiction, right? Sutana Police have even more jurisdiction than that, but we're told to stay within our own jurisdictions. We're not going to overstep other people's, right? So yeah, my dad was the one who worked on the whole tri-party agreement that we used to have with the RCMP.
Yeah.
But we've been standalone since 2003.
Well, what? What does that mean, if you don't mind me asking?
Okay, so when my dad was younger, he joined the RCMP, and back in those days, Indigenous people, well, only men, because women at the time weren't allowed, were Indigenous men were not allowed to carry an equal title to other white officers. So anybody Indigenous had to wear a flash on their shoulder that said Special Constable. They were not allowed to carry firearms, and they were not allowed to attend calls on their own. Like, they didn't have the same full powers as a white officer did. And so when my dad went through training in the early 80s, he was stationed out in Cochrane, Alberta here, and his corporal would make it so that he would come in at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but the next officer wouldn't come on till 6. So that would leave my dad in the office for 2 hours just to be a prick because, or sorry, excuse my mouth. Just because the racism within the department was so bad, and he only lasted in the RCMP for about 9 months. He got into a fight with his corporal, and my dad told him, if you think you know what you're doing, go ahead and do it. And he put his files on his corporal's desk, and that corporal laughed at him and told him he would never be successful in creating a standalone First Nation police service where Indigenous officers had the same powers as white Canadians. So my dad spent the next 30 years of his life behind the scenes, working or fighting with the provincial governments, the federal government, the RCMP. I have news articles. He created the Chief of Police Association in Alberta with the help of some lawyers because that gave us more power as First Nations to actually start trying to make changes within policing. And anyway, sorry I'm rambling, but I have so much information. It's kind of like my dad's voice is always in my head. And so what happened is when we first started trying to get our own police service back in 1997, we had to have the RCMP stationed in our reserve, and our officers would go away to RCMP training, but they worked underneath the RCMP officers. So it was a 3-person agreement between the federal government, the RCMP, and my First Nation. And it took from 1997 to 2003 for all of our officers to be trained properly. And then we were able to turn around and remove the RCMP from my community completely and be a standalone police service. So that's how we've been since 2003.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yay. And you have restorative justice
We do. It's called
also, right?
peacemaking. Yeah, it's called peacemaking, and we have our own court on the reserve, so a lot of our people who are charged right in our courthouse, our probation officers, our victim services, they get diverted as long as it's not like a charge where it's an automatic, the Crown has to decide. Well, the Crown has to agree to it, and so does the victim before it can even go into peacemaking.
Wow, thanks for sharing. You
You're
know,
welcome.
so many people don't understand the complexities of just everything.
I think the changes aren't being made, that none of us are working to make changes in our communities.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you, everybody. I appreciate you. I am going to step down because I'm starting to not feel so good.
Oh, okay, Smarsha. Well, we're only going to be another 10 minutes anyways, but thank you for coming up, my friend. Always appreciate having you part of the conversation. Um, I just one thing about I'm working on I'm the co-chair for the National Waste Management Table, which is joint with Indigenous Services Canada and First Nation organizations from across country. And why I bring this up is because what Whitney was talking about reminded me the way the Indian Reserve waste disposal regulations work, which are under the Indian Act. The fines for dumping on reserve, illegal dumping, is $100.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Or the price of cleanup, but you can never find the person to clean it up. And we're not in the business of policing our own people for things like this, because Indigenous Services, formerly in Indian Affairs, has chronically underfunded waste management on reserve, and it really is an essential service. But like I bring it up because it reminded me of that, just the ability to find people. Again, it's got to be the RCMP. Like, I was an environmental protection officer for Indian Affairs in the 90s and early 2000s, and I was the Treaty 7 environment officer first. Then I was a Treaty 6 environment officer, and I had found some garbage that was illegally dumped in Enoch, actually. And so what I would do, because this was one of my things, I just couldn't take it, when people were dumping on reserve. And this is common. It happens in Sutton also, right? People from the city of Calgary. For Enoch, it's people from the city of Edmonton. They come and dump on reserve.
That's why my nation is blessed to have their own bylaw, because
absolutely,
it is just $100 fine.
And you also enforce it. So like if you go on the Gazette, there's a thing called the Gazette. If you look that up, all the First Nation bylaws are listed there. And there's many First Nations that have waste bylaws going back to the 70s, but they're really weak and they never had enforcement abilities. And the struggle is because we have to rely on the RCMP to help us with enforcement a lot. And you can't find a RCMP officer who's interested in pursuing dumpers, right? Especially for $100 fine. So what I used to do to kind of get around it, I would actually physically dig in the garbages that I'd find. So I would look for mail with people's names on them and addresses. I'd find their mail and I'd go back to my office in the Pink Palace in Edmonton. For all of our Indigenous people that know the Pink Palace, where the Indian Affairs head office still is now Indigenous Services Canada. But I'd go back, so I'd look up the phone number back when we still had phone books. I'd look in the phone book and I'd call the person and I'd tell them, my name is, I'm Melanie from the Department of Indian Affairs, and I'm the Treaty 6 Environment Officer, and I have found your garbage at Enoch, and it is a federal offense to dump on Indian reserves. And I wouldn't tell them what the fines were. They'd be all like, "Oh my God, I didn't know, I didn't mean to." And I'm like, so I'd actually make them come pick up their garbage. And I'd never tell them what the fine was, but as soon as you say it's a federal offense, they get all freaked out, right? But the worst thing I found, there's a fast gas. I think it was a fast gas. No, maybe it wasn't a fast gas. I don't want to speak out of, don't quote me, but it was a gas station on Stony Plain Road in Edmonton. And they had leaking fuel storage tanks. So they had a bunch of contaminated soils there. And I found all their contaminated soils dumped at Enoch. And it is so hard to enforce these things on reserve because of those. It's called a regulatory gap, right? The province has regulations to address these things. The federal government really doesn't, because the only federal lands are really parks, national parks, and they have their own policies that they utilize for just in this instance dumping. But for Indian reserves, it's just the Indian Reserve waste regs, and they're so weak. But good news, being part of this table, this national table, is we're having a lot of really good conversation, and hopefully trying to find ways to fill those gaps and to improve the way that waste is being managed on reserve. And that's a whole other conversation anyways, but it just, what Whitney was talking about reminded me of, there's so many gaps like this. And that too, I feel, plays on our mental health as Indigenous people, because it feels like we're not as important as the rest of Canada and Canadians. Because if it's an essential service for the residents that live in a county or another municipality or a city or a town, why isn't it not an essential service for us? And one thing that I'll share with everybody that stands out to me, I remember when I worked for the department, and I was young when I started there, and I didn't know much about First Nations and reserves and the Indian Act. So I was still learning. But, there was a big push in the 90s because they wanted chief and councils to start implementing it, like a taxation, a fee for service that of the band members should be paying to have their garbage picked up. And some people within the department, and a lot of these people are retired now, and the attitudes have changed in the department. But back then, some of the attitude was, well, garbage removal is not a treaty right. Anyways, things like that have played on my mental health for many years now, and like hearing those things, those statements, right? And when I was a young woman and learning all of this, like I was still learning, right? So I was like, okay, that might make sense. I don't know. But, now that I look back and I know what I know now, I'm like, wow, what an awful thing to say. We deserve the same level of service as everybody else in this country. Anyways, my dear friends, it is 4 minutes to the hour. And like I said, I'm pretty tired. I do see we have somebody that wants to come up. Penny's mom. I'm going to bring you up for a minute so you can add to the conversation, and that'll be our last guest for the night. And then we'll wrap up and each take a minute or so to add to, just for some closing remarks. But go ahead, Penny's mom. Welcome.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say that Whitney didn't say this. Hi, Renee. Anyways, I used to work on Her Nation, and one of the things that I thought was just amazing and cool is that if we as white people trespass on the nation, yeah, you can get fined by the nation, and I think it starts at 500. It might be 2,500. I don't remember what the rules were, but if you don't have the cash or object to paying the fine, you can go to the Justice Center and take a course about why it's not appropriate to trespass on Indigenous land. And I think that's awesome.
Brilliant.
So, and that was all I wanted to say. So thank you for letting me come up and say it. And hi, Renee.
Absolutely.
Hi, friends. Renee's
Thank you so much for adding to that. Sorry, Whitney, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say Renee's an awesome person. She's well known in my community. She is also from our stomping grounds in this area that we were talking about.
Well, I went to Grandin And I was there the year that Chiefy he graduated when I did. So to give you a clue when I was around. But all right, I'm going to pass the floor. We'll go from top to bottom. We're going to say some closing remarks, and then we're going to close down the discussion for tonight. And I got a nice surprise to share with you all. But I'll turn it over to Pasty Native. Go ahead, my friend.
Thank you for having me up. If you don't mind, can I do a shameless plug for my show?
Yes, please.
Fridays at 12:30 Eastern. We have an amazing new show on Beaver Politics, which is called The Rainbow Connection, which talks about LGBTQIA rights being impacted by legislation and history, as well as I personally tend to do a connection towards the being Native part of it and being two-spirited as a trans Indigenous man. And again, thank you for having me up. And please, if you guys can, join the show. And there's more shows on Beaver Politics every day of the week.
Absolutely. There sure are. And I will give a little overview. But thank you so much for joining us. And please come back next Monday if you can. And we're always happy to have you here. Whitney, go ahead, my friend. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Pacey, did you want to add?
I'm trying to convince my mom to listen to the show.
Oh, nice. Oh, I hope so. Bring her.
I do. I just want to say, see you, Scots. Thank you, everybody, for letting me come up and kind of vent. Yeah, just keep in mind at the end of the day, we all need to protect ourselves and remember that if women's rights or two-spirit LGBTQIA rights or Indigenous rights or any rights are being threatened, we can't have all without, without one, like we can't have one without all of them is what I'm trying to say. So see you, Scots. And we don't have a way to say goodbye in my language. We don't. We say until I see you again, which is nana yitsune. So
Hey. Until we see you again, Whitney. Go ahead, Sasquatch.
Well, since this night is usually Indigenous Matters, I'm just going to reiterate that I'm very, very grateful for being allowed in this space. And I just want to say again that it always amazes me that no matter what, Indigenous people always value community and let other people come and be a part and celebrate and be educated in their culture. And just thank you for letting me come up and speak.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Curtis, my friend.
Well, yeah, I got it. I was just trying to find the unmute button there. Yeah, in our language, Cree, we don't have a word for goodbye too. We always say "Kawapntano samna." That means I'll see you again. We'll always see each other again. You know, there's no goodbyes. You know, we'll always see each other again, and it's always good to learn, share laughs, share information. You know, at the end of the day, every single one of us as people, we all want to see the betterment of our people. And you know, we go about in many different ways, and we're all working at that goal. I believe that's really the intention of what we have for our people, like all our leaders and those who are in politics. Deep down in their heart, they want to make the world better for themselves and for their people, and they go about it in different ways. And you know, like we have different ideologies sometimes that conflict. At the end of the day, we're trying to make the world and our nation, our community, our people better, and we go about that in different ways, you know, and we all have different ways of coming at that. And I believe that's the end goal. We all want the earth to be, you know, the way it is. We all want a clean earth, clean air. I believe, you know, we want to destroy the world. There are those who are pure capitalists, and you know, like for Indigenous peoples. Yeah, my power went low on my phone. That's why I kind of stopped there. But yeah, that's what I believe. At the end of the day, we all want the betterment of our people, and that's what I always do. And I believe as Indigenous peoples, or a lot of people don't like the word Indigenous, as Cree people or whatever tribe you're from, Métis or whatever tribe you're from, whatever treaty you're from. I think it's important for us to vote in this upcoming election because these issues are going to affect us as people, and our future generations. A lot of things are going to happen, and we need to make a stand. And whatever party is out there, that's going to give the best for our people, I believe we should vote for that party, whoever you feel that is. And listen to all their platforms. Listen to the NDP. Listen to the Conservatives. Listen to the Liberals, and see what leader, what party would truly benefit the First Nations people. Like, what are they saying? What are they offering us? What's the best deal for our people? They may say things, and then, but will they really do them? And I hope they do, eh? And because I've seen each one of these governments in power and promise us things, and we're still where we're at, and hopefully I'm still hopeful one day that we will get to where we need to be and where we were promised under the treaty, and that's my hope.
Thank you so much, Curtis. And I hope the same thing. And I agree with you that I think all of us, everybody, no matter what we profess to be our party or ideology, we all want that betterment for our future generations, for our own selves at times, because not all of us have the same opportunities or same privilege given to us. And thank you, Sasquatch. I totally agree that, we have a beautiful sense of community, and we love that this community isn't just for us, it's for everybody. And we're so happy that you're here to join us. And Whitney, you're welcome to come and vent here anytime that you need to. This is a safe space for everybody. And I'm so glad that you joined the conversation. I do see that there's another guest that wants to come up. I'm sorry that we're closing out for the night. So please join us again next week. And I have a special guest coming next week. I don't know if all of you follow T-Jack. He is a historian. He's got 33 years of teaching history and government and leadership. So I've invited him to come and co-host with me next week, because I think it's important that we start telling the true history of this country. And that means that we're going to talk about the history that he knows, that we're all taught in the schools, but we're going to add the Indigenous perspective and the Indigenous story to this, because we're not going to move through reconciliation until we understand the truth of where we've been, and then we can make a new direction for where we're going. So I'm hoping that you can all come. I'm not a historian. I'm going to do some reading this week because I want to be able to add to the timeline. But anybody that has knowledge about our history, our wars, who our leaders were, if it's Louis Riel or Poundmaker or Tecumseh, please come and share your stories and add to that history line so that we can tell the true history of this country, so that everybody can be part of this conversation. And then we're going to have a new history together, I hope.
Awesome. I'm a historian as well, so I'll be there.
Woo! Come and join us, because I'm going to need you to help fill in those blanks, because, I'm sure we've all heard it, right? Lots of people know the histories of Canada and America, but we don't know all the stories about our people and where those stories fit into that timeline. So I want to start exploring some of that a little bit. And then maybe after that, the next week after, we'll start looking at some of the platforms of the parties before the next election. And Curtis, I still haven't forgotten about your friend that you recommended, because I do want him to come.
Yeah,
But
eventually.
we'll get there.
I like your idea. Why don't we bring up a Liberal? Let's see what they have to offer with Indigenous, and bring up a NDP. We'll see what their platforms is Indigenous. They say this is what we're offering you guys, and see. That's what I think.
I think so too. Awesome. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining me. I'm Trudy Six Birder. I'm the host of Indigenous Matters for the Beaver Politics Network. Check us out tomorrow night at 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, where Frontline Feminist is going to be hosting the news hour. And after that, she has a little bit of a panel as well, where we can come up and talk about the issues of the day. We have a show 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day. So check them out on the Beaver Politics page and join as many as you can. The conversations are always interesting, fulfilling, and we have a really beautiful community here. Thank you for joining me tonight, everybody. I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week. Take care and stay deadly.